This is In Touch with Terri, a power-packed podcast for the medical aesthetics industry.
I just discovered your podcast, and I feel like I've hit a gold mine.
This is someone who's got a lot of knowledge. She's been there, done that.
Terri Ross is a former Fortune 500 executive, international speaker, founder and co-CEO of Apex Platform, and Terri Ross Consulting.
Just listening to her energy and her passion and just how hardcore she is.
Her knowledge of the industry and just her connections in general are phenomenal.
In Touch with Terri will bring you solutions to increase operational and employee efficiency and practice profitability. Plus, feature some of the top industry experts as guests.
The Apex team literally changed the game for us.
Terri, your courses and your podcast are just so helpful.
She made me feel like I could do this.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Now, here's Terri.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of In Touch with Terri, where I share industry trade secrets and best practices in the aesthetic space, in addition to always featuring some incredible industry experts, all with the intention to support and help your practice thrive. So thank you guys so much. And as always, truly from the bottom of my heart, you guys bring me to tears. I love the feedback. You make this podcast possible. So please don't forget to DM me. If you find this particular podcast valuable, I think you're going to love it. We're going to be talking about the value of patient engagement and education and what that means for the growth and differentiation of your practice. But, we have had so many interesting guests lately. And as I mentioned, thank you so much for the feedback. So today I am super excited. I'm going to take this podcast in two angles, but my guest today is Marcus Heckler, who's the Chief Creative Officer for Engage Technologies. Marcus, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Awesome. I'm really excited to talk to you and talk about all this fun technology and story and goodness.
Me too. But also, you guys, for the tribe, I'm sure many of you know that we have had Apex Platform for 2 years. We launched it in March of 21. And as of the end of March this year, Apex and Engage Technologies have merged together. And I'm super excited to talk to you more about that in terms of what their technology does and the core values that they share, which is in direct alignment with what Apex Platform does, which ultimately, you guys, optimizes your practice. And so we're going to focus a lot today on patient education, patient engagement, what it even means, why it matters, some of the myths that you guys might be thinking about. And I'm sure you're already in your head going, well, I can watch a YouTube video and I can go on Dr. Smith's website and I can go Google some shit. And you know what? You might be able to do those things, but we're going to get really down and dirty with a little bit about Marcus's pretty insane background. I mean, I am so highly impressed with him that I even went to do a private one-on-one session with him. I think you're going to find his background extremely valuable as it relates to what he does at Engage. And I think what Engage and now Apex Platform powered by Engage is going to bring to your practice. So, when we think about patient education and where that falls into the spectrum, it's sort of the top of the funnel. Marcus, would that be fair to say?
When you think about when people are looking for solutions, there's a reason why Google is so powerful as a company and why search is so powerful, because when we're looking to solve a problem in our life or we're looking to overcome an obstacle, if I'm going to use it in some of our language, the first thing we do is we start searching for it. The tech industry has gotten so big as it is, but it's also important to go, okay, well, I'm raising my hand at this moment in time and I'm curious. And when I'm curious, then I'm open. And when I'm open, then I'm open to be swayed one way or what other way. And the power of story in that moment of curiosity is really what propels people forward to make decisions. So at the intersection of that technology and the intersection of the storytelling there is a really powerful combination, especially when it's timed at the right moment.
So I want to pause there for a second. I want to give Marcus the accolades that he deserves. Marcus is responsible for leading the creation of story-driven video experiences for patients and the engaging technology. He has experience managing an agency operations, several creative teams for Belief Agency. He was the senior director of story for Smart Story Technologies, where he produced sequenced visual stories deployed by data-driven engagement platforms for desktop and mobile. So I'm just so impressed, and I know you will be too. Marcus, if you could dive a little bit more deeper into your training. I mean, you have exponential training and a lot of this stuff that I think is really unique as we expand now into the aesthetic space for what Engage has been able to do. If you can just share with us a little bit more about your background, that would be great.
I graduated from Boise State with a degree in quantitative economics and then immediately did not use it. I went into business. I went into business, but I went to the creative side. And I'm kind of a weird bird. I have the left and the right brain both working at the same time. And so I'm not all analytical and I'm not all creative. I kind of use both like two pedals on a bike. And I'm really interested to see how creative and data, how those two things can play together and how one affects the other. And I've been doing that for a long time. So it's not that I didn't use my degree, but I used it in a different way, I suppose. And so a lot of the stuff that I focused on, particularly in the agency world, was really branded content. We were the agency of record for the central brand team at Microsoft. And so we got to tell really highly people-driven stories where Microsoft was along for the ride. And it was fascinating. We worked with Amazon, Starbucks. We also worked with a lot of little local companies too. And it was all themed around this. Like our work was primary in story-driven content. And what I mean by that, it's not stories like as a buzzword. People throw this word around all the time and it's storytelling. And no, actually there's something specific with it that I learned from one of my mentors. His name is Brian McDonald. And a lot of this stuff you can find in his work in Invisible Ink. But what I did is I took it and I applied the structure of it and I use it as a strategy. And so how do we then not just articulate something clearly, but how does it lead to some sort of movement, not just in the emotion, but in the action of the person who's listening to it? And that's really where the intersection comes alive within all kinds of ways, right? But particularly in aesthetics, I know we're going to talk about it. There's so many decisions to make for a patient. When I first started getting into this space, it's not so simple. It's scary because it's surgery. It can be expensive, but the pain, if for lack of a better word, is high. Right? Like there's high motivation to do something. And obviously that's more on the surgical stuff. And then on the non-surgical side, it varies. And so your story has to vary. And you're talking to so many different people and your audiences and your patients, like it can get really, really complicated really, really quickly. And so the power of what we're doing is that we're trying to connect all those dots so people don't have to. So right at the moment, right when I'm curious, what's the thing that I need to know? And here you go, make a decision.
I love it. And I'm sure you guys listening are like, what the hell is he talking about? How does it pertain to me? And why should I care? And we're going to get down and dirty and deeper into this because you have to care. I have been gone almost the last 4 weeks speaking. And when we think about what's happening to the industry, there is a lot of private equity money right now. We're looking at sustainability of medical spas and plastic surgery practices, or both. We're looking at profitability. We're looking at where the gaps are in the industry. And what does Apex platform practice optimization solve? And now with the merger of these two companies, where does the patient engagement part fill in? And Marcus gave you a little bit of history in terms of the storytelling, when patients are Googling something, education around that. How do we get them to make a decision faster, timely, based on what they need? And how does that increase conversions? And that's what I want to take a pause. Listen, I have been doing this for a long time, helping practices launch, grow, and scale. And there is not a day that goes by that I do not hear or get asked, Terri, how much marketing should I spend? Where do I put my marketing? I need to get new leads in the door. How do I educate my patients? How do I get higher conversions? And listen, without training, it's really at the forefront. It is the foundation. It's like you're trying to build a house and, put up the walls and the blinds and the lights, but the damn floor's not there. And so we have to say, I have a practice to run and manage, and I do need these external things. But if I invest in that, what am I going to get from it? So, before we start diving in to what Engage Technology offers with these unique, story-driven, curated by a highly medical advisory board. I think, Marcus, is it based on what, 90 different plastic surgeons, derms?
Yeah.
What is it?
It's quite a few for sure.
Yeah.
But it's some of the most respected names in our field. So our goal with the library and the content that we're making, working with all of these medical advisory board members, is to really open the door. We're not getting in super in the weeds, what's a cannula or any of that kind of stuff. What we're trying to do is we're trying to help the patient feel more comfortable with the procedure, have a good picture of what the outcome, their goal is, so that they have a higher likelihood to show up for the consult. And so we want to tie this content goal to an actual metric that we can measure in the practice, so we can see how it's actually improving and how it's helping patients walk in the door, asking better questions. They feel more confident in the procedure itself and what they think it's going to do. And they're not scared shitless because they've been Googling for whatever. And it's breast implant illness everywhere, which is the number one search term on Google.
Interesting. Please share a little bit about who Engage Technologies Group is. Like, what is Engage? How long have they been around? How long have you worked there? What do they do? So we can give some context as to why this podcast is so important, and then what we're talking about in terms of the video library.
Yeah, so I think it's almost 5 years now. I've been with the company for the last 2. I was really hoping to get out of the agency life for a while. I've been doing it for quite a while. And, just life circumstances and changes. And so I personally knew the CEO. This would be my second venture with him. We were at one before. And the premise of it, the basic premise of it, is if you think about the 3 Venn diagram circle, in one circle is technology, right? How we deliver content. One circle is the story, and one is basically wisdom from the industry. So what we do is we combine those 3 elements. I like to call it really story as a service. We talk about software as a service. We're thinking about things story as a service in all the ways I've been describing before. And what we do is we create content, we curate it, or we create it custom with industry leaders, and then we deliver that content to patients on mobile device, primarily via text message. There's other ways that you can get into it as well, right at the moment that they're most interested in it. So when they're raising their hand. And again, going back to what we're doing, our goal is to help them get to whatever that decision is. And so yeah, a couple years now, we're in ocular. We have a lot of great use cases in ocular and dental, even in like knee, hip, and spine. Those are some different use cases. We're looking for emerging markets, in specialty pharmacy, things like that. And our latest vertical to launch has been aesthetics.
Super. Oh my God, exciting. So for those of you listening, I really want you to sit with this for a second, and I want you to ask yourself, truly, I'm always do this hokey pokey thing, like shut your eyes and really think long and hard about where your business is today. Are you happy with the performance? Even if you're in the top 1%, top 10%, making multi-millions, what if? What if you could make another $500,000? What if you could make another $1 million? What if you could make another $2.5 million? And we've had plenty of practices grow. None of you could say no to that, right? So now if we're saying, hey, Engage Technology now solves this gap on the front end of the funnel by creating highly curated educational videos that can be pushed out. And we're going to get to how this works. But if when you're asking yourself, where does my practice suffer? And you're like, well, I want more patients, or I'm so sick of saying the same thing over and over and over again, or my PCC or my front desk or whoever it is. What if your patients could receive educational videos and it increased their educational awareness? As Marcus said, increased patient conversions, and then they're coming in more educated, more ready to say yes. I want you to say to yourself, hell yes, I want that, because why would you not? So Marcus, you talked a little bit about what these videos can mean, but can you elaborate a little bit more on some of the statistics that you have found within the organization, what patients value? I think some of these stats are really important.
So I'll give you one use case, and it's cataracts. I wouldn't make an equivalent to aesthetics because it's not like a pure cash pay deal, right? So most patients, when they go in, they get cataracts, they've got insurance that's going to pay for a certain lens, and then it's the upsell to the premium advanced technology lenses that are offered through companies like Alcon and Johnson & Johnson, et cetera. At that moment of appointment is when we send there, not at the moment of inquiry, but the moment with their scheduling their cataract evaluation. We send the content, they get text, they watch these videos. I think it's over 80% of them watch all the way through. They binge them, and it's like 5 or 6 episodes. It takes them through what's cataract and what are my lens options and what about financing and is it safe, answering all the questions that need to be answered. And by the time that patient gets to the cataract evaluator and the surgical counselors, their likelihood to convert, we've seen go from practices are like 15% conversion rate. We see them go 25, 35. We even have some of our top performers that have gone from like 15 to 45% conversion rate. So for them, that translates to millions of dollars for some of the larger practices. So that's one example of like a conversion rate example. When you're interested in something, you'll watch. Just like when you're looking for how do I do this on YouTube? You know, I'm a big woodworker guy. I'm always looking for things. Oh, how do I make this cut, or how do I do this thing? And if you're interested, you're going to watch. So even if you know the content, like for instance, Terry, if you watch these videos and you're like, I'm kind of bored, it's because you already know all the information, right?
Right.
And so we see, right. But because people are interested and it's like at a moment where they have to make a choice, the watch rates are super high. And again, they're designed with the goal of helping somebody make a decision in mind, but it's not done in a markety, beat you over the head, manipulative kind of way. It's like your best friend who's gone through the thing that you're about to go through helps you get there.
I love that. I have been around the block for a while here at Aesthetics, almost 20 years. And you know, there are practices that have loop videos playing, right? Mm-hmm. It playing in the lobby. And then all these corporations, right? I mean, I used to work for Medicis, which is Galderma now. Yeah. I was at all the brands offer videos too. So I know this is one of the questions that our company, our sales team is going to get asked. And I'm sure as a client listening right now, you're like, okay, well, I get these videos from these other places. Why do I need your videos? Like, what's the difference? And so I think this is really critical because it's important for them to hear from your perspective. You know, there wouldn't be an organization making videos for bullshit and wasting money. So, and then with the 120 plus group, we have this highly curated medical advisory board. I mean, these are some of the most heaviest hitters in the space. So from your perspective, why is it different?
First of all, when you think about branded content and having made branded content for a very long time, there's an agenda with it. There's always an agenda. And the agenda is to get you to buy more, insert product name, right? And so in kind of storytelling terms, we look at our audiences or patients, we call them, they're our heroes. And then they've got a goal that they're trying to reach, right? Something they want to change. And they have obstacles. Those obstacles could be financial. Those obstacles could be fear. Those obstacles can be confusion, lack of awareness about whatever it is. And what content does, or what storytelling does, it helps that hero overcome the obstacle to get to their goal. And now when we put it in those terms, when you look at branded content, oftentimes what brands do is they make themselves the hero. And as soon as they make themselves a hero, their goal is profit, and the patient then becomes the obstacle. And so now you have things that are being pushed at people, right? There's always this thinly veiled agenda behind it and can turn people off in a big way. And as human beings now, especially in the digital age, we are wired to spot bullshit. We are wired to, I know you're manipulating me. I know you're marketing to me. I know you're advertising to me. And wait for it, and 10% off, right?
Yes,
we know this. Yeah. We know this, right? So when everything's going that way, go the other direction. Hey, our host's name is Katie. She looks like them. She's been a patient herself, and she's just your friend you're having coffee with that's explaining, here's how it works. Here's the process. Here's what to expect. Here's the questions you might have. And there's no sponsored by insert brand name. It's just, it's you. And here's the thing. It's you as the surgeon that is delivering this content to them. It's not you, the surgeon, sending brand content to them. Yeah. You're the brand. Surgeon's the brand, right? And your brand as medical professionals is to help people, right? That's what you got into this whole thing to begin with, is you want to help people become the best versions of themselves. So that's reason number one, right? The whole thing is unbranded. Like, we mention names, but we mention all of them, you know? So when we talk about toxins, we talk about Botox and Daxxify and DISP, we list it so that patients know their options. Also, the other benefit of not having something that's branded is that it doesn't limit you. You're the expert. When they come in the door, they see the range, and then you help guide them to where they need to specifically go as a patient according to their goals and desires. So there's no like, oh, go down this road only. So I would say it's probably the primary reason. The secondary reason, though, is going back to the search stuff. When something like when the Linda Evangelista thing happened with Cool Sculpting, when the People article magazine came out, right? Now, that's a really tough thing to untangle if the content that you're sending is Cool Sculpting branded. Now there's this People article out there and people are searching, and then it becomes gossip. There's all kinds of things. And then, oh, I heard this or I heard this. But if the content is coming and it's not Cool Sculpting, it is cryolipolysis coming from a surgeon, that's different. Oh, I understand this now. What are the risks and et cetera? So the misinformation that's out there, and I'm sure we've again, talking with our medical advisory board, the amount of things that they have to walk people back from. Just let me walk you back a bunch of steps here because you've been on Google and you've gone down the rabbit hole, and I need to get you out of the rabbit hole so you can understand what's actually going on, right? And that's if the patient shows up. That's even if they show up. Because if they've gone down the rabbit hole and they're scared, they're not going to show up anyway. So what this does is allows people to go, hey, this is vetted, accurate, clinically accurate information that doesn't get too far in the weeds to scare you, that opens the door. So when they're in your consult room, they walk in going, here are the remaining questions I have. Not here are all the questions, or I'm so far off of just baseline that I got to get you to center.
I love everything you just said. And, if you're listening, I'd almost want to ask you to go back a little bit and listen to what Marcus just said again, because he so eloquently articulated what the industry faces. And he's right. I mean, we are all self-diagnosing, right? We're searching, as Marcus said, on Google. We're watching everybody else's videos. We're watching our competition. We're watching what they say. And you guys, patients, we have to give them a reason to be loyal. We have to give them a reason to want to come into your practice. You should want to be able to differentiate yourself. And this is such a phenomenal opportunity. And we're going to get into the synergies between our two companies in a minute, because I think that's the greatest segue as to why we decided to merge. But tell me what it would mean to you if I Googled your practice on any topic, right? Halo, Morpheus, it doesn't matter what. And if you could push out a video to me, we'll get into the technology later, at the time of my inquiry, whether it's I'm on your website or I call the practice. What if you could push me out content that was being tracked, right? So that you had data, me, Terri Ross, as a patient, did I watch it? How long did I take? When did I bounce out? At what point in time did I bounce out? But that knowing I perhaps called the practice because somebody followed up, and then I came in much more educated, and you are having a consultation that is so much more efficient, and you're able to close and convert higher. Look, at the end of the day, that is what I teach, preach, right, all day long. And so, Marcus, knowing that and the bullshit that's out there today, and where practices have some challenges, when our two companies were talking and, dancing with each other last year, tell me the synergies on, you've been engaged for a couple of years now, what Apex's intentions are and how we help people, and now coming together, how are we this one powerful solution that really does disrupt the industry against everything else and all the bullshit noise out there?
So Apex is technology and training, and the community piece where we overlay is we kind of have these gaps. We have data and we collect all the data, but making meaning of the data and seeing down to like the revenue per hour and stuff, being able to see how these things affect these metrics that we're tracking, that we're looking at over time, not just conversion rate, but think about the amount of phone time your staff spends on the phone. So we have like pre and post-op series. So 2 weeks ahead, make sure you get a care companion. Just know that you're going to have somebody drive you home. Like, it's all the things that you have to say all the time. Your staff has to say all the time. Now they don't have to repeat themselves so much. That's a harder metric to measure. And that's something that we're going to crack the nut on, I know. But even like post-surgical instructions and, hey, remember this, or hey, it's 2 weeks later. This is what you can sort of expect the healing to look like. If you have any questions, call us. And it's a guided journey, right? We're just taking you from each step to the next step to the next step. And the likelihood that those patients they see something that concerns them that it shouldn't, well, then they're not going to call. That's not going to be extra time on your staff, an extra burden on your staff. Also, at the same time, because the content does some of the work for that, now you have consistency across the board. Because you might have one person say, give advice or instructions, or they may say it a certain way, and then somebody else may say it a different way. You might have somebody who's green, who's training, that says the wrong way. So, this gives you the opportunity to have a consistent message across the entire journey, their entire patient journey. And it also improves their patient journey, right? They're happier because they feel more informed, they feel more confident, and you're going to give them the result that they're looking for. And because you're all amazing surgeons, right? You're going to do that. You're going to get them to where they want to go. Then their likelihood to refer and repeat, right, and stay loyal to you is going to increase. So taking the content, how the story is serving the patient journey, but then being able to measure it beyond just the front end of the funnel, but how does that affect the entire life cycle of the patient so that they repeat and then they refer, and then your patient base grows or more organically rather than then over time, your marketing dollars are way more effective because essentially you're spending the same amount of money, but your patient base keeps growing. So now you need to pay for the traffic isn't as strong, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I want to clarify, I know Marcus has mentioned surgeons a couple of times, but this is both for surgical and non-surgical. Yep. So that's a perfect segue. Marcus, let's dive into the broad range of content that you guys have developed in both the plastic surgery space and the non-surgical space, and a little bit more. I know you just mentioned a little bit about these guided journeys, but let's get into the details of what both libraries offer and how many, and then really how it works.
Yeah, so overall, we're north of 200 episodes, which sounds like a ton, right? But it's broken into basically these little journeys that focus on a procedure. So somebody calls or somebody hits your web form and they say, I'm interested in hydrofacial. Okay, but I don't know anything about that. And I'm curious about it. Okay, hey, let me just send you a quick little thing on it. Here's what hydrofacial is. Here's how it works. And here's the technology behind it, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? I'm interested in Halo or BBL. Okay, how does that work? And what does recovery look like? And answering all those questions. So as far as the surgical and non-surgical library, we break it into face, body, and breast for surgical. And then for non-surgical, we break it into face and body procedures. And so for surgical, we have facelift, neck lift, eyelid surgery, brow lift, rhinoplasty, fat grafting, liposuction, otoplasty, facial implants, comprehensive facial rejuvenation, which is a combination of procedures, right? And then we have pre and post-op for that as well for surgical.
And when you talk about journeys, you're talking about these short videos. Is that what you mean by that? So everyone,
depending on how complex the topic is. So something more simple on like the surgical side is going to have shorter episodes because you're focused on chemical peels. Okay, cool. It's going to be just a couple. And there's like a setup, then there's the thing on the procedure itself, and then we hit financing. And we have permutations on that too. So if your practice does care credit, if your practice does patient buy, or I think Alpheon, or you don't even want to mention one of those, you don't even want to, so we have a generic one. So whichever one your practice does, we feature that one. And other practices do other things. For things like mommy makeover, where you have multiple, abdominoplasty and lift and augmentation and liposuction, that'll be like 6 or 7 episodes because we're covering more ground, but we also don't want to make them long because then that can also wear people out because it's information, right? And so we try to keep them short so that way, okay, I got the topic, tummy tuck, let's move on to the next one, hit the next button below, boom. Now we're talking about liposuction. Okay, we're done talking about that. Hit the next button. Now let's talk about a range of options for breast augmentation, whether that's you've never had implants or maybe you want a reduction. And so we lay it all out and then we wrap it up with, things like, here's what to expect. You're going to have some paperwork to fill out. It's even that kind of administrative stuff that we mention to encourage the patient to have the right expectations coming in through the door.
So I want to play devil's advocate for a minute because now my new role here at Apex powered by Engage is president of the aesthetic division, leading the forefront of the growth of aesthetics, the growth of these video educational libraries. And really what I want to preface that is that this is not a separate thing. While we're talking about patient education and engagement. If what you guys have all loved and supported us and what you understand Apex platform to do, and our community and our data and our analytics and our training, is that we help you optimize your practice, right? We are not a separate, practice management software. And part of practice optimization is what we're talking about today, right? This is just an added now solution to help you guys alleviate some of the challenges you have today with uneducated patients and or getting misinformation. But I really want to be clear. And I questioned all this too, right? When we first started having conversations about our companies coming together, that you talked about, right, pushing these videos out, and it can be about the procedure, about the practice. And I get it. It's not a branded thing. It can help the doctor differentiate themselves. They can do a branded, right, video about them specifically. But if I'm listening, I'm sure you guys are all right there with me. And you're like, well, I already have that. I already offer that. I already put FAQs on my website. I already have a video about how it works. Or back to what we said earlier. Oh, well, Marcus could go on, I'm making shit up, plastic surgery practice, or Marcus could go on YouTube. Now, again, we know that could be a whole lot of bullshit and misinformation, or maybe not the right information related to that particular doctor or medical provider, right? So I really want to stress the importance of this medical advisory board that is a mixture of derms, plastics, not NPs, highly educated people that all came together and said, hey, we believe in what you're trying to do, and how do we solve it? And how do we help provide our intellect and advice to making these videos? And so how would you answer it again if somebody's like, well, I don't need this. Patients can go find it.
Well, my answer might surprise you. Some of them don't. We have surgeons that are even part of our medical advisory board, but they've already created their specific custom, I want to do it this way because I feel like this is exactly the way that I want to couch it, right? Now, that's fine. If you have the time and the money, producing videos is not cheap. It's very expensive. It's one of the most expensive ways to communicate. It's very powerful because it's an emotional format, but so maybe that, I'm not saying this is for everybody, right? Anybody who puts a product out there knows that there's a sweet spot that we're trying to hit. What I would say is, for the people that are like, well, I have looping video, or I've got, a couple videos on YouTube. This library is exhaustive. It goes really, really far and wide. So even when I was reading off the facial stuff earlier, that's just a third of the surgical library, the surgical library is half of the whole thing. So it covers this really, really broad range. We put a lot of money and effort into production value of representation and diversity in our casting of our B-roll. And we have, they're like little vignettes, little movies, right? That help people move people along. I've looked at all the content out there too, and I see what is being sold as content. And it's like medical animations with voiceover that sounds like Max Headroom from the 80s, and I'm not dogging on all of that. What I'm saying is that our approach is it's less about like the clinical information you need to know, right? And kind of like looking over your glasses and looking at the patient and going, this is what you need, This is more like, hey, how's it going? I'm your friend. Let me just walk you through, right? And then we have a lot of it. It's designed to your workflow. It's designed to go into the things that you already do today in your practice and how you run your businesses. So it aligns to those points. It connects where the patient's interested, and it connects at the practice point in time as well. So we connect the dots in both of those ways. And there's no other product that I've seen actually does that.
I think what's the next sort of hottest thing that practices should care about, not just about this insanely valuable, again, highly curated educational videos in the way that you just described. Let's get into the tracking capability and how this technology really works, where the practices now can benefit and actually have data to see if this shit is even working or not, because that's what we all care about.
Yeah, exactly. So a patient can start a journey one of three ways, and we're about to come out with a fourth. First of all, we all use them to QR codes. We use QR codes for everything. So if a patient's in your office and they're curious about a procedure, scan this QR code and it'll take them right to it. What it does is when they scan the QR code, it auto-populates a text message that opts them in for this journey. And then they start receiving text messages, right? That's the first way. The second way is your front desk person, whoever's triaging those leads as they're coming in, following up with patients. We have a portal that they can use where they can type in their name and their phone number. Hey, Terri, I'm going to send this to you right now. Hit send. And then right on Terry's phone right now, she has it and it's on her phone. It's in her hand. That's probably one of the most effective, even though it's manual. It's one of the most effective because you're at that point of commitment of relationship. So there's an element of reciprocity. Hey, Terri, would you mind watching these videos before you come in for your consult? Or would you mind watching these videos to learn more about your range of options? And at the bottom of the page in those videos, when they watch them, at the bottom, it says, click to schedule your appointment. So we route them right back to call me back. There's a little button right down here. Call me back and let's schedule the consultation. The third way is integration. So we have what we call direct and indirect integration. For those of you who have Nextech, I think we're working with Simplast as well. Once you triage that record, automatically goes. As long as we have the right phone number, we know the right procedure that they're interested in. So, and we do a whole setup with that. We also have what we call indirect integration, where we can work with your whatever technology that you have. We have an easy way to connect the dots that happens like once a day instead of instantaneously. So there's a little bit of a drawback with that. But if you don't have one of the platforms that we support, it's not a problem at all. Those are the integration ways are the least lift on your practice because now it's just happening automatically. You don't have to worry about training your staff or any of that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. They are less effective because it's less personal. So there's a trade-off that you kind of have to figure out between those. Now, once a patient's on a journey, right, because we have multiple episodes, they can either binge them because they have a next button. They can go back if they wanted to watch something else. At the bottom of the page in the footer, it's your practice name, it's your phone number, it's your address, it's your email or your website. The page is in your colors with your logo at the top. So it's all white label. It all looks like it's coming from you. And in the very first episode, and we have a little upcharge for this just because we have to some admin stuff to do this. But the very first episode, you can put a custom intro. We'll send you a little video kit and you can have your doctor introduce the series. So the first thing that they see is the surgeon. And I have an example of that. I think, Terri, we can include in the show notes on YouTube of Dr. James Grotter. We can show what that kind of looks like. And this is where the technology comes in. So the technology not only sends it to them, right? Now we know we sent it to them. Okay, did they open the link? Yes or no? Yes, we know that. Did they watch the video? Yes. How long did they watch the video? What percentage of completion was it? Was it 25% and they dropped off? Was it 80% and then they hit next? Was it 10% and they hit next? And there's a lot of insights we can gain from that for us to optimize the content, because I think this is also an important point. Mm-hmm. This is living content. We're going to continue to improve it as we learn data at scale, right? How effective this is going to be. How can we make it better so that we're serving you, the practices better as well? So I know that you watched it. Now, if you stop watching and you leave it, tomorrow you're going to get a text message reminding you and bringing you back to where you left off. So, oh, hey, I stopped at episode 3 of 7 on Thursday. When I got it, I watched 1, 2, 3. Well, Friday morning at 8 a.m., it's going to be like, hey, Terri, pick it up at episode 4. And today we're going to be talking about X, Y, or Z. So the content the technology continues to re-engage the patient to help them complete that journey, because ultimately if they complete the journey, they're more likely to make the decision to come in for the consult, right? Or less likely to make a phone call when they're concerned about something in the post-operative process. So all of those things we can track. And then did they click the schedule link, right? And we know.
This is just so fascinating. And again, why our companies wanted to merge. What statistics, Marcus, do you have? And I know obviously this new launch into aesthetics is new, but you have a big, right, and I think 90 people on this medical advisory board that are, again, plastic surgeons, non-surgical providers, derms, et cetera. What stats do you have on how many people actually watch these videos in full? And then how long are they?
So statistically, we're just launching in aesthetics. So we don't have a large sample size yet. We're seeing great stuff so far. But in ophthalmology, I'll give you some example. I think earlier I mentioned like the average watch rate for those series was 80% across all the episodes. And I think it was like around 85% of patients who opened, like I got to the first episode, completed, they binged it the whole way through the first day. The conversion rates I've already mentioned, right? Converting to a premium lens. The average would be, if they're going from 14 or 15% conversion rate, they're getting to the 25s, the 30s, which is pretty significant. And the top performers are people who really embrace it and follow our best practices that we provide to the practices. We've seen them get to 40 to 45% conversion rate, where the industry average is 15. So that's pretty amazing. And here's an interesting thing about this. So I was working with one practice in Denver, and they were doing great. They were in like the 40s. They were getting up to 43, 44. And then 2 weeks, it just dropped back to 15. They're like, what is going on? And they were operating a call center. So this is a large ophthalmology practice operating a call center. And so we dug into it. And we're like, looks like you're not sending anything. And they're like, oh no. So the practice administrator went to their call center manager and said, hey, why aren't we sending these things out? Well, call center manager was like, oh, I just didn't think it was that important. So then what happened is they retrained. All right, let's kick it back on. And 2 weeks later, immediately came right back up, because that's about the scheduling window from when somebody comes in, as somebody gets scheduled for coming in for their consult. So we saw when they didn't send it, it was like a water faucet shutting off. And it's like off, boom, down, on, right back on. So it's one of those things, because people always ask us, like, how do you know? How do you know? I mean, there's a lot of things that are going on. It's like, well, we know.
Look, I know probably another question, and I say it too, right? Being in the space for so long and you said it earlier, aesthetics is different than ophthalmology, right? It is different. The reasons I'm going to make a decision, if I have cataracts, for God's sake, I mean, I need to be able to see. I need, right? Mm-hmm. To have, now maybe I don't need the premium lens, and that's what it's proven to do. But, you mentioned here about patients that want a surgical or a non-surgical procedure. It doesn't matter, right? They still suffer a pain, right? They still suffer a want, a need, a desire to look better, to feel better, to whether it's a divorce, had a baby, whatever it is. And we owe it to these patients to be able to give them, again, the right information at the right time, so that, again, we can just run a more effective business. It's almost perplexing to me that people can try to come up with any bullshit objection as to like why this wouldn't matter, but we see it every day. I mean, we work with patients, our team has for so many years, on the gaps in these practices.
They're going to find information anyway. Why shouldn't it come from you?
Yes. No, think about that. You're right. Why shouldn't it come from you? And again, if we're looking for ways to differentiate yourself, I mean, we talk about the competition, and I often hear so much, well, they don't do that down the street, or they don't charge, or this practice is doing this. I mean, you guys, if we're all doing the same damn thing in some variation, you may do it better or different or wiser or more educated. It doesn't even matter. But at the end of the day, if I'm just, consumer Terri sitting at home searching for my thing, and 10 of you pop up on my Google page, how am I going to choose you? Right? So what if you were the practice that had these videos and you were sending something out that looked like it came from you? This is a huge opportunity to differentiate yourself, let alone to be able to provide valuable curated information. So this was such an insightful podcast. And I hope you guys listening found this so valuable. And I hope that you're like, holy shit, I want to learn more about this. So can you touch upon, Marcus, a little bit about the cost?
Our goal is to be able to build recurring revenue. And so we offer a subscription to this content and the technology and the analytics and all of that kind of stuff. So it's a subscription. If you're a surgical practice that also has like a med spa, there's a bundle. You can bundle them both together. Or if you are surgical only or non-surgical only, there's different prices for that. So rather than getting into all the complexity here of all the different things and customizing and all that kind of stuff, basically, I think you could just say, it's no more than $1,500 a month if you are getting everything. And the way I kind of think about it is like, okay, $1,500 a month, and I get one more procedure, I pay for it.
I mean, listen, everyone knows that when I teach on stage, and again, I'm so blessed to have so many beautiful supporters and clients that have taken my sales training program, or I've been out there to train practices. And, sometimes some of these efforts is, the phone can ring and it's a $30,000 surgery. I mean, we can, 3, 4, 5, 10x someone's practice. And so I really want to just preface that again, you guys, when you think about where you invest in your business, and Isaac and I recently with Dr. Renato Saltz started our own 4S Summit. And we did that because we get asked so much, despite that we do 26 conferences plus a year and teach and lecture. Terri, can you guys come and help me? Like, I still need to know, how do I do it? How do I execute? We pick apart your P&L, we pick apart your benchmarks and your KPIs and what you need to do. I really want you to ask yourself, if you could invest $1,500 a month, look, Apex is $1,000 a month. I mean, it is ridiculously, I'm not going to say cheap. I'm going to say it's an investment because you get a significant ROI. I mean, if practices grew $2.5 million last year, plus if you could invest $2,000 or $2,500 a month, what would that be worth to you? Sit with that for 1 second. Marcus just said it. If your phone could ring once, what if it rang 5 more times? What if you got an extra 10 patients a month? I mean, it's almost a no-brainer. So Marcus, you are amazing. I loved the opportunity to be here with you today. I love your storytelling background. I love your quantitative background. I love that you're both left and right brain. You've been so instrumental, right? From the perspective of production with these videos and the medical advisory board. I just genuinely appreciate the knowledge that you were dropping on today's podcast. And, this was packed, you guys. So if this is you and you're like, I'm kind of stuck, we're going to be wrapping up Q2. I have to go into Q3 and Q4. And you're like, how can I be different? How can I grow? How can I maximize my practice? How can I optimize? How can I train? How can I get more people in the door and provide this educational value? I truly invite you to not wait, put your phone down, apexplatform.com, visit the website. Our sales team, our consulting team, they are there to stand by. Our ultimate goal is to always get to know you, get to know your practice, get to know what your needs are. We identify those areas of opportunity and then provide you with the best solutions to help scale your practice. So, Marcus, my man, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Awesome. Yeah, it was
I appreciate
great.
that. I appreciate it so much. And so if you guys found this valuable, if you're like, hell yeah, there's this new game in town, Apex powered by Engage, are 2 companies coming together to bring you one significant badass solution in the market that is a complete solution in terms of practice optimization, filling in this gap on the front end of patient education and value, then truly, guys, please, again, don't wait. So pass this along. And as always, I love the feedback. I want to hear, DM me, hit us up in terms of other topics that you would love to hear. And with that being said, to stay up on our upcoming events and our platform releases, you can subscribe to our newsletter and there will be information in the show notes as well. But you guys are amazing. Love y'all so much. Thank you, Marcus. And I will see you guys on the next episode of In Touch with Terri. Ciao.
Thanks for listening to In Touch with Terri. We invite you to schedule a discovery call with our Apex team. The link to apexplatform.com can be found in the show notes. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of In Touch with Terri.